Denise Crosby.
Welcome.
I know, look at this. This is our last interview.
Yeah.
We bored him to death.
I knew him. I went out with that guy.
You want to do the old speech? Alas, Horatio, I knew him well.
Right.
Oh, my God.
To be.
Or maybe
Or not to be. Yeah, okay.
It's a pretty good question.
Well, listen, it's funny. I was saying to him, this is a chance, even though maybe the greatest horror boogeyman of all time was Armus, the oil slick from Star Trek. We're not going to talk about Star Trek.
The skin of evil, sir.
You slipped it in there, though,
Just
you
got it in there.
dog.
But one thing we haven't talked about, and I really think, very early in your career, you worked for Walter Hill in 1982 on a wonderful movie called 48 Hours. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you. Walter's interesting. He fancies himself a little bit of old school kind of director cowboy.
Oh, for sure. Have you met Walter?
I have.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. How did you, what was that about?
That was about a completely different project, but he just came in. He was like all testosterone, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. It just
Yeah,
sat
well,
down.
look at his movies.
Yeah.
I mean, so, God, I was so young and getting started. And, Joel Silver produced it, and 48 Hours. So I got a call to come in, and, was going to be like this tough street girl, and Margot Rose, they were considering for the other. And it was interesting because it was so far removed from any other kind of audition I'd ever done. Instead of going in a room and reading a script, and the director's there, and you're here, and you're auditioning, they took us out and did photographs of just Margot and I, like street girls hanging out, like in abandoned buildings and alleys, and kind of just messing around with each other. And they took all these stills, and they liked the stills, and that's how we got the part. Both of us.
So it was on a vibe, basically.
It was a vibe. It
That's
was a look
so
and attitude,
interesting.
right?
No idea if you were good actresses, because of course that was long before people look at tape. All they
Right.
were looking at is how you looked on film.
Right. And what was exactly, and could we respond to whatever they were throwing out at us, and did we look like, interesting enough to be these girlfriends of the two main. James Remar was my boyfriend, and I forget he was like a Native American.
But he was called the Indian in the movie.
Yeah.
That's how long
You
ago it
couldn't
was.
get it. You couldn't pull that off now. And so he was and they were the bad boys. And I would later go, and I was in James Remar and I worked together in Dexter. Mm-hmm. So he was Dexter's dad, and I was killing him. I was his first kill. I was poisoning him slowly. So we got to work together again, which was really fun. But Walter, yeah, he was great. I mean, I was so green. I didn't know how to walk around a movie set, and we were shot at Paramount, and I was overwhelmed. And it was Eddie Murphy's first movie, so he was very full of himself coming off of SNL. And Nick Nolte, the opposite, was so gracious and giving and kind. And excuse me, I'm getting over a cough here.
have the
It's
mask
not
on, you're
gonna
fine.
get you. It's way past that. The funny thing with Nick, he had this big sort of Coke, those waxed cups, red and white.
I thought you were going to say
Coke.
habit there. For
No,
a second.
Coca-Cola cups. That's another side of it, and that's another night. That he was drinking on the set, and I started, to get a scratchy throat, and he said, "Here, take it, have a sip," and I just thought it was Coke. I mean, it looked like, and it was like straight Jack. And he had just that twinkle in his eye, like,
That'll clear it up.
Yeah. It was a fun set.
It's so interesting what you said, because of course, Nick Nolte had been nominated and won Emmys and nominated for Oscars, and you said, he was delightful. And Eddie, who had only, he was huge for Saturday Night Live, damn it, Gumby, damn it, but hadn't really done anything, and then he had this chip on his shoulder.
Yes.
You just never know about the people that you're going to work with.
It often has been my experience, the ones with the most experience and the accolades, they are generally the most gracious and down to earth. And sometimes, the young Turks are a little, full of themselves and can be that way.
Do you think it's insecurity?
Yes, in a word, everything is about that, but I just don't think they're seasoned enough to, a lot is thrown in their lap when you're young. It's almost a curse to become that famous, that young, and not have the, life lessons learned. You can get very confused and lost in all of that. It's not grounded, it doesn't ground you.
And they're also enabled by their managers and their agents and everybody.
All that
the
comes
studio,
with it, absolutely.
Until they have a bomb, and then all of a sudden it goes away,
Right.
and they're not prepared for that. What's amazing is James Remar may play one of the most loathsome, horrible people in that movie. One of the great screen villains. And he's a delightful person in real life.
Totally. Oh my God, yes, yeah. That's so often the case. And I think you're not that way in real life to be able to play it. It's a fascinating thing with acting, that you can go to these dark, really strange places that reside in your imagination, but yet, you wouldn't do that at all, but you have to.
What I think is so interesting about that movie, and I'd love to hear, what your impression was when you finally read the script and got cast, is that, people think about it now in retrospect, oh, Eddie Murphy's first movie, it's this hysterical comedy, but it's really very much Walter Hill's sensibility. It's very dark, it's very violent, it's very sexy, as some would say it's very racist, obviously, but yet it is also very funny. And movies like that aren't really made anymore. They're one or the other. And this was like a really unique hybrid. And that's why when you watch it now, it stands up. It's brilliant, but it's also so atypical of the kind of movies that are being made now. Did you have any thoughts when you tonally on what you were doing? Because obviously you're in the dark part. You're not in the comedy part.
Right. Well, the 80s were such an interesting a time of, just writing and indie films. People talk about the 70s as being the golden era, but, the 80s were really opening up to this kind of, edgy, violent look at stuff. I just thought it was had a tremendous body behind it. Everybody was firing on all cylinders. It was, I'm trying to think of the guy who wrote it.
Stephen D'Souza.
Was it Stephen, but was it also someone else?
Yeah, it was another writer. Stephen came in to do the rewrite.
Yeah.
It was also... the original writer it wasn't Jeb Stewart, that was on Die Hard.
He's a fascinating guy, that guy. And I see him, he always had a book in his hand. He was like a total intellectual nerd, and actually turned me on to a lot of European film directors. I was so young and hadn't experienced all that stuff. I'm totally blanking on who that is. We can look it up.
I know, it's killing me. I must be getting old here. Because I used to be a walking IMDb.
You
are. Of course, he was the one who worked with Walter Hill.
Yes.
And then the studio wanted to lighten it up, and they brought D'Souza in. Joel Silver brought Stephen D'Souza in to sort of add more comedy when they cast Eddie, but the original writer had that.
Yes, yes.
Ashley, come on, you
I
know
know.
this.
I'm killing myself.
I know.
Just less vocal.
I have my phone. We could Google it. But
Come on, who wrote the original 48 Hours
That
with
would be
D'Souza?
somebody out there.
Somebody
Let's
look it up.
Crowdsource this. I'd like to go to the.
Yes.
Larry Gross.
Larry Gross.
Thank you. My
Good.
God.
Gold star for you.
Woo! Larry Gross. It was and I wonder what's happened to Larry Gross. I was trying to think about. I thought of him the other day because he was on the cutting edge. He was getting a lot of attention around that period of time. He was kind of a very much a go-to writer that people were trying to make movies with and stuff. And I remember going to Fassbender movies with him and really weird, stuff he would drag me to.
Well, it's so interesting to talk about what a fertile time that was for movies. You're going to hate this because I'm going to find a way to integrate Star Trek for a second. A lot of people say, oh, why would you leave Star Trek to do movies because you had this great gig? But they forget what movies were at the time. I mean, you had just come off doing Miracle Mile with Steve DeJarnette, which is this really ambitious, cool indie film. And that's what I imagine were the kind of movies that you were looking to do. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience doing Miracle Mile? Because it's a lot of people probably don't know what I'm talking about, but for the people who do, it's a really smart, interesting indie film. And this is a time where, spoiler alert, it has a real downer of an ending, and they're begging him to change the ending to make it upbeat so that it could be like a studio movie, and he's not willing to compromise his vision. So what was that like for you?
Well, again, this is the early 80s, mid 80s. And if you were in acting school, which I was, going to this very exciting twice weekly workshop in Hollywood where the future stars were like Michelle Pfeiffer and George Clooney and Bryan Cranston and Kyle Chandler and William Forsythe, and we were all in class together. And we were working on great literature, great American and European, plays, and putting this stuff up. And I was seeing some of the best work I'd ever seen, including this on film, was happening in that class. So we were ambitious. We were hungry. We were chomping at the bit to do good stuff. And everybody was starting to get it, People were starting to get cast and stuff. And so that television was not obviously what it is today, where so many great stories are being written for, limited series or on television. It was, the 80s was not great television writing. It started to shift with Hill Street Blues. What's his name?
Stephen Bochco.
Stephen Bochco.
I knew that one.
Yeah, thank you. Well, these guys, I'm never going to win this game with these guys. I mean, Bochco began to open up the door for amazing writing and different look of television, which was very exciting. But so you didn't kind of aspire to get on TV. You got on TV, excuse me, you would get on TV, look, you would pay the bills, you had to pay the bills, so nobody was in a position not to work, but it wasn't like, oh God, I really want to do an episode of Dynasty, and be, and I'll be famous. Listen, some people, I'm sure that was not for my gang and everybody. Those indie films that we were starting to see, that's what we dreamed about, I mean, I watched as a little girl, Bonnie and Clyde and Faye Dunaway doing Network, and you see movies like that and you go, oh my God, that I want that.
And that led to something like Miracle Mile, because you're not doing it for the money, you're doing it for the passion.
Right. So Miracle Mile, that's right, I totally do. So Miracle Mile is a film that Steve held out for. He wouldn't compromise that ending. And it was listed, there was the AFI magazine that I think came out once a year, and before the blacklist, which is now this list of all of the supposedly best screenplays that haven't been made yet. There was the AFI list of best scripts that were laying around that nobody had made, and Miracle Mile was one of them. And so, Hemdale was a great independent studio that was, that was supportive of filmmakers. And they got Steve, and they let him do whatever he wanted for that film, and so he agreed to it.
And for those of you who haven't seen it, there's a great premise that Anthony Edwards gets a call that Los Angeles is going to be attacked, a nuclear attack, and it's 12 hours or? Well,
what happens is Anthony Edwards plays this jazz musician, and he meets a waitress that is played by Mare Winningham, and she's working in an all-night diner, and this diner is kind of a classic spot in LA. It's still there. It's not functioning as a diner, but it's been used for films over and over, called Johnny's. But she works the graveyard shift, and so you can imagine in this all-night diner who is in at 4 in the morning. It's a couple of trash collectors. They're stopping for some coffee. An airline stewardess that is kind of wacky. I play this high-powered financier, kind of stockbroker, who's already, wheeling and dealing at 4 in the morning to make the New York Stock Exchange. And it's this eclectic cast of people. So there's a phone booth, remember those? There's a phone booth outside the diner, and it's ringing. And it's kind of annoying, and everybody's having their beefs in the coffee shop, and Anthony Edwards just goes, screw it, and goes out and picks up the phone and goes, hello? And it's this guy who thinks he's called home to say goodbye to his parents. We've just launched a counterattack from a missile silo, and we've only got an hour or two. And Anthony goes, what? Hey, wait a minute, ma'am. Who are you calling? He goes, oh my God, who am I talking to? I said, and clicks. And so now he's got this information. What does he do with it? Did that just happen? And he comes back in, and the movie now is about these people trying to survive.
And to me, that movie is always played as a horror film, and a pretty great one, too. So if you haven't seen it, find it. Yeah.
Thanks, honey.
No, it's great. And it's so funny. I have a friend of mine who's a writer on The Simpsons, and he said to specifically tell you that he has the cliff notes you were reading in the diner in that movie. He got them at auction or got them from Steve DeJarnette. And it's so funny because it made me think of my next question when he said that he had these cliff notes and he's a huge fan of you and the movie and that he bought this thing at auction is your action figure that led to Pulp Fiction.
Oh, yes, wow.
Not Pulp Fiction. Well, yeah, Pulp Fiction and Jackie Brown.
I'm thinking of, I had Gravity's Rainbow?
Yeah. Wait, hold on.
Cliff Notes? Yeah.
Let me
or
check.
something, yeah.
Because no one
Now
else
It's really obscure. Yeah. It's really less intellectual, weird.
Yeah. Let me look, because I have the answer right here. And this is the question only I can apparently answer. Here. Oh, Steve DeJarnette gave me the prop cliff notes of Gravity's Rainbow. Gravity's
Yep.
Rainbow. That's a good trivia question.
So obscure. That's a great trivia. So that's you want me to recant that story?
Yeah.
I know, I love that story. So there was a script of the movie Reservoir Dogs. I hope you guys have seen Reservoir Dogs. So every actor I knew in town were reading for a part. It's all men, all great guys' parts. So I had gotten the script just to read, and it was one of the best scripts I ever read. It was incredible. I'd never read anything like it. And I went to a party that weekend, and a a guy comes up to me, this really kind of goofy guy, and he goes, "Oh my God, you did a movie with my favorite actor, Michael Parks, called Arizona Heat." I went, "Oh my God, you saw Arizona Heat?" I mean, it was like such a B movie I did. But Michael Parks was just, this incredible guy. He had a huge career in Hollywood. It wasn't like, he was on a bike, like traveling through the state, like not Route 66, but he was like, one of these guys. He had
was what he was
huge
known
star,
for.
yeah. And he and I just did this crazy B film in Arizona where we played cops. I was a gay cop, partnered with his misogynist pig cop, and we just have this chemistry and back and forth. So it's, I went, "Oh my God, how did you? Wow, you saw that?" He goes, "Oh yeah, you were great. And he goes, "Hi, I'm Quentin Tarantino." And I went, "Oh wow, Quentin, I just read a script you wrote. It's incredible." He goes, "You did?" I said, "Yeah, Reservoir Dogs." He goes, "Oh God, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. I love it." So a couple weeks go by, and I'm at a Pasadena Comic-Con, and I'm signing, and I look up, and Quentin's standing in my line with one of my action figures for me to sign. I went, "Quentin, oh my goodness." He goes, "Yeah, I'm hoping you could, I want to put it next to my John Travolta Saturday Night Fever doll." And I went, okay, great. And so I signed it, and he said, "Hey, Reservoir Dogs is premiering at Sundance." And I went, "Oh my God, I'm going to Sundance. I'll be there." And he said, "Well, you have to be my guest. Come to the movie." I said, "Absolutely, I would love to." We go to Sundance. I go to the screening of Reservoir Dogs. It's a standing ovation, and a star is born. So, Quentin, then we keep in touch, and he calls me one day to tell me that he's writing a part for me in Pulp Fiction. This new movie he's writing called Pulp Fiction. I go, "God, that's Quentin." He goes, "Yeah, it's okay, so it's a TV show within the movie. There's a TV show called the Five Force Foxes, and it's like a Charlie
Fox Force 5.
What's it called? Fox Force. You guys, Fox Force 5. You guys are so nerdy. Fox Force 5, and you're going to be the top fox. You're going to be the boss fox, and Uma Thurman is one of the foxes, and I'm going to shoot this scene of the TV show. Would you do this?" I said, "Absolutely." So, but then, as they were filming, he lost that sequence. But then he brought me in to play Jackie Brown's lawyer in Jackie Brown. So now I'm waiting for him to write,
Fox Force 5?
Yes.
I want to see the show.
Wouldn't that be great? Fox Force 5.
He says
does
one more
television,
movie,
that's
but that doesn't eliminate television.
I know. I'm going to suggest it if I bump into him.
You'd be like John Forsythe in
Yeah,
Charlie's Angels.
exactly. Foxes.
Good morning,
Foxes. Good morning, Foxes.
That's hysterical.
Wouldn't that be great?
What you talk about, obviously all these seminal films from the 80s, of course, one of those films is Pet Sematary, and obviously a film that is beloved based on the Stephen King book. But the thing that also is so unique about it is this back in time there weren't a lot of female directors. There was Catherine Bigelow doing stuff like Near Dark, and then there was Mary Lambert. Oh, and there was Susan Seidelman.
But we can count them in one hand.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about how that movie came to you, and then working with Mary, and perhaps how working with Mary was maybe different than some other horror films, if you feel like that working with a male director was different at all, or certainly the way that, maybe female leads are fetishized?
Yes, interesting. That's very interesting. So Mary Lambert and I started out making music videos together. And I was in her very first music video, which was the Tom Tom Club with Judd Nelson.
Didn't know that.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
Oh, wow, finally, something he doesn't know about me. And so the Tom Tom Club, well, first the Talking Heads and Mary were friends and all went to RISD together, the Rhode Island School of Design. So Talking Heads came out of that. So when this new thing called music videos and this new thing called MTV was born, they wanted to make a music video. So we did the Tom Tom Club, and we just had a great connection, Mary and I, and became friends. And she said, we've got to make a movie together. We will make a movie together. And you know, saying that and doing that is like, you know, a world apart. But we did a number of music videos together. We did a Chris Isaak music video. We did a Mick Jagger music video. The Tom Tom Club. I want to say we also did a Dolly Parton one. I did a bunch of music videos. I was in, like, She's Got Betty Davis Eyes. Remember that one, Kim Carnes? Yeah, and I did a Black Sabbath.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Black Christmas.
And Black Christmas, my own composition. Thank you very much. So, Mary then, her first film was a film called Siesta, which is a really interesting, odd film, amazing cast. And
Ellen Barkin, right?
Ellen Barkin, Julian Sands, Gabriel Byrne, Martin Sheen, Jodie Foster. You know, Miles Davis did the score. I mean, holy moly, right? So that got her, you know, making movies, and she eventually was offered Pet Sematary. So it timed out perfectly because I had just left Star Trek. And a lot of people think I left Star Trek to do Pet Sematary, but no, I had no job to go to. But it came pretty close, and I wouldn't have been able to do Pet Sematary if I had stayed on Star Trek. But yeah, I had to. She wanted me to do the role. I had to test for it. I had to go to Paramount and test for it, and then we did it. Got it.
That movie, when I saw it, it was one of the most tense movie watching experiences of my life at the time. Like, I think I walked out of the theater with my seat cushion stuck in my behind because I was clenching so hard. Now, you die in this film, and spoiler alert, it's okay, she gets better. And then apparently somewhere you die again off screen before Pet Sematary 2 because you were so good at it. But you've died in some fairly interesting ways, on screen and off screen. And you've been killed by some professionals. Of all the times that you have been horribly murdered on screen, what was your favorite? That's what I've got to know.
My favorite, although the most difficult and the most harrowing, for sure, was Dexter.
I bet, with the plastic wrap.
Yeah, I was plastic wrapped. The house was plastic wrapped. You know, I couldn't move from a dining room table. And Michael C. Hall is terrifying. I mean, and he's that close to me. And, you know, he's got that retractable, you know, they're showing me, yes, it's retractable. It's not gonna, but, you know, when that knife is, when he's going, boom, into my chest, it's beyond terrifying. I really was unsettled by that. That was weird. I'm trying to think what other, yeah, I got nibbled on in The Walking Dead by the walkers, but I started laughing. And Greg Nicotero, who was directing, said, Denise, I said, but they sound like little hamsters. They came in and I started laughing so hard, I thought I'd die. I go, guys, don't make the noises. Don't make the noises. They're so funny.
And I think that's one of the reasons that, a lot of people talk about, what was the appeal for so long? Was it the amazing makeups? Was it the great directing? Was it great?
the
But I
hamster
think
noises.
they had an unerring ability to cast great character actors in that show who were memorable. Like, you only did 3 episodes. And I'm like, oh, Denise was on it for a whole season. And then it's like, no, you were in it for 3 episodes.
I know.
You really make a mark. What was that like, being in Atlanta, working with that cast, that whole experience? And obviously, it's one of those shows that continues to, people still ask you about it.
Yeah, and spin off, and they've got. So I didn't watch The Walking Dead when I got offered the role. So I binge watched, the up to where I could. And I went, okay, I got it, because it's really about the people. You get invested in these characters, and it's sort of, it takes on this theme of what would you do? How willing, how far are you willing to go? And you don't really know. You think you do until now you're in this situation. And so I never was given a script. They were very, very secretive. I agreed to go and do the part on just the description, a premise. I get to Atlanta, and I still don't have a script. And I'm now going, we're like about to start shooting in about 2 days. So Scott Gimple, the showrunner, I said, tell me what this is about. What is this place, Terminus? And he said, oh yeah, I think I better sit you down and talk to you about what we're doing here. And so he described this, horrific period in these people's lives, and what they had to go through and endure, and how they would never go through it again, no matter what. And it's poised as a sanctuary, and of course it's quite the opposite. And they were amazing. That was an amazing set to be on, because Andrew Lincoln, it starts with the number 1 on the call sheet, and he was such a beautiful, gracious human being. When I got there, I walked into the makeup trailer to have a fitting for this wig. The wig should have had its own, credit in the. It was like a human hair wig that I kept tilting over with the wig. It was just so much hair, and I get into the makeup trailer, and Andrew Lincoln was getting his makeup applied, and he just jumped up and just greeted me with the biggest, warmest hello and welcome, and I'd never met him before, and he was just, I'm so happy you're here. And then you get the sense from the makeup people and the hairdressers, this is a very, very kind, no bullshit zone. They actually said that, this is a no bullshit zone. And it was just, they're not always like that, They're not always like that. So that was just a beautiful, and everyone, I mean, Melissa and oh my God, all of them, Stephen, Yoon, and Norman, and everybody. Amazing, Michonne.
And that's why it went as long as it did, it's, if you ever want to know what's really going on with the show, talk to the hair and makeup people. They'll tell you more than you ever wanted to know.
Oh yeah,
And more than they should probably tell you. Yeah.
That reminds me of a story. My husband did a movie years ago that James Caan directed, and the first day of the set, first day of shooting, before a single frame was shot, Jimmy comes into the makeup trailer, and he looks at the makeup and hair, and he said, it starts here. It begins here. This is a sacred place. I don't want any any negativity. I don't want gossip. Because this is where the actors come first. And this sets the tone of the day. And I always remembered that. It's very true. That's where we go first. And, it can set the tone, if you've got some hostility in there, or you've got, somebody having a little bit of a, fit, it can really sour the day.
I've had that conversation with hair and makeup, and it usually lasts about 2 weeks. And then it starts. Well, I got to have so many more questions, but we know you guys want to ask questions. We only have a few minutes left. We always do this. So please line up by this mic, and you can ask questions about, I know we barely talked about Pet Sematary. I'm sure you have a lot more questions.
Didn't even touch Creepshow?
Creepshow, we want to talk about Creepshow. So there's a mic and a spotlight, and you can ask your questions. Of course, if you don't want to ask questions, we can continue to grill Denise, but I'm sure you must want to.
Yeah, don't be shy.
Don't be shy.
One of us.
If you want to know why her most horrible deaths, and she didn't include Armis, the oil slick, as one of the great perpetrators, I think Dexter was a little bit better.
Right?
If you want to know if her plastic wrap was air conditioned when she was being murdered by Michael C. Hall, you can ask that.
Was I naked under that plastic wrap? I was supposed to be, but I wasn't.
My question is simply, out of all your horror that you've done, which one was your favorite character to play and why?
Of all the horror, well, I mean,
Tasha Yar.
Definitely Rachel Creed. I mean, that's just a beautiful part. And, Stephen King, I had my book on set with me, my copy of Pet Sematary, and I asked him to sign it. And on the title page, he wrote, "You are Rachel Creed, and Rachel Creed is you." Love, Stephen. So it was just a magical time, and I'm so glad people are. I just think it's, finally coming into its sort of, own in a way.
You better ask more questions, otherwise I'm going to start asking about Mad Men, and you really don't want to listen to our conversation about Mad Men and Nightmare Weekend.
It's not a promise, it's a threat.
Okay. So what was it like working on
Creepshow?
Creepshow. Oh, yeah.
Ended up on Creepshow.
Oh, my God, Creepshow. So that's Greg Nicotero from The Walking Dead. He, this is so funny with Creepshow. So this was 4 years ago I did Creepshow. 4 years this month, I think. And I had a hip replacement 4 years ago this month. So I was on the gurney. I had, the IV going. I handed my cell phone to my husband to hold on to it, and my agent calls. This is like out of Hollywood. If you couldn't write this. My agent calls. He said, "I've got an offer for you to come to Atlanta and film Creepshow. It's a straight offer. Greg Nicotero's producing it. He's asked for you." And it was for more money than I'd ever gotten for a guest part on a TV show. And we're in the middle of COVID. So nobody's working. And I go to my agent, can I call you back? I'm about to get my hip replaced. And he goes, oh God, yes, okay. So I go through surgery. And, it's so easy. It's such an easy thing. You don't even spend the night in the hospital. It was just, so I get home. I call my agent. I said, "When is it shoot? You have to be in Atlanta in 9 days." 9 days. I don't know if let me get back to you. So I called a orthopedic surgeon I knew, one of the top, does all the big athletes in the world. And I said, "Is this doable? Can I be on a plane in 9 days?" Because I'd read the script. There was no running, no hopping, no jumping. Can I be on the plane? Can I get to Atlanta? Can I shoot this? Would it be possible? He said, "Of course it's possible. You have to do it. You take some ice packs. You wear compression stockings on the plane. You have some painkillers. You have a cane." And I got to the set of Creepshow 9 days later, and I never told them I had a hip replacement. Greg Nicotero doesn't know. Don't tell them. Don't tell him. He doesn't know to this day.
Did you do your stunts?
There were no, well, so I'm playing like this, this genius scientist in Antarctica, and, we've got the parkas on and all the fake snow in Atlanta. We're in Antarctica for Atlanta. So there was, so I'm in these big boots, and I'm walking supposedly on the tundra, and I see this reflective object in the snow, and I've got to go down on my knees to pick it up. Now I can get down, but there's no way I can get back up. But they cut the shot before, and the sweet assistant director, this young man, being a gentleman, helps me up, and I get up, wow. And that was I was like, phew. Because, if I would have told them I had a hip replacement, they wouldn't have taken the chance.
They would have moved on.
Yeah, they would have. Next, we'll get that girl.
Who's
So is it
next on the
acting or
list?
is it lying? That's the question.
It's it's doing what a girl has to do to make it in Hollywood.
Well, it's like all these actors who on their picture and resume, has special skills. Speaks, fluent Mandarin and, equestrian. And, they say, oh, can you ride a horse? Of course I can ride a horse. So what's the most ridiculous thing you ever said you could do but you couldn't?
Oh, my God.
Kneel down and stand back up.
Right. Run and, yeah, exactly. God, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to go back to when, I know that I've said I could do accents. People said, can you do a Norwegian accent or something? Yeah, you just say yes. You always say yes. And then, what's the worst? The worst case scenario is you come in and you can't, and they go, well, what? Okay, get out of here. You can't. Or you work on it really hard, to be able to, do it. They're obviously, they don't say, well, do it right now. And you say, well, no, I got to, it's been a while since I've done it, so let me come back tomorrow or something. But the thought is when you're starting out, it's a sort of catch-22 because you have no credits. You have no experience. But you have to have a resume. So you're just padding it up the, wazoo. Oh, I did, Juliet and a production of Romeo and Juliet and, Marilyn Summerstock. And, none of this is true. But you've got to have something to walk in with, and you hope you've read it enough about the play that you can answer some questions.
So what did we learn from Denise today? We learned you should always
I'm a
lie.
filthy liar.
Honesty matters for other people.
Honesty is overrated.
But we did promise you she is a great guest on panels and has great stories. And, of course, as always, she delivered. So now it's your chance. It's the time for the Nightmare Weekend group selfie where you all come up at the bottom of the stage and she takes a picture with you. This is a tradition at GalaxyCon Nightmare Weekend. So we want to thank you all so much for coming. But before you applaud and thank Denise for an amazing panel, please come up here and take a picture with her as they come out to take the picture. Thank you so much.
Thank
we'll
you,
see you all weekend, and she'll be at her booth if you're shy and want to talk to her there.